Oh, there we are, live. And we have one viewer.
Yes.
Maybe it's one of us. Oh, no, we have a few now. We have a few. That's lovely. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Hi, Nina. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Jenny. How are you?
I'm good. How's your Sunday been going so far?
Well, it's Remembrance Sunday. So I went to
That's
church and I
right.
went to service in the park, Kennington Park near the church where I go to, where it was very, very moving actually. I cried several times today.
Really?
I I find Remembrance Sunday very tragic and beautiful, and you have all the service people there, and we pray even for the enemies, like who fell, and the sons of our enemies, as well as the men largely, and well, the women and children who died also. And yeah, it's just like, and there are kind of veterans there, and the
Beautiful.
last surviving people who were there in World War II, I guess, or thereafter. So yeah, so that's what I've been
There's
doing.
still a few of them around.
Well, there was certainly some. I don't know. I didn't ask them, but it's people who clearly served at some point and
Yeah,
were elderly, paying
very
their
old.
respects. Yeah.
Yeah, actually forgot that it was Remembrance Sunday, which I feel a bit bad about, although I don't really mark it anyway. But I do remember because my son was just telling me during the week they had a service at his school. His school has quite a military sort of tradition, and and he had never seen one before. I guess for some reason they didn't have one last year. Um, and it reminded me because when I moved to the UK in the 90s, and I'm here to Belfast, and I went to a very traditional Methodist school with a long history of um, sending young men into the armed forces. We did the service for the Remembrance Day, and it was one of the most moving things I'd ever seen. I'd never seen anything like it before. And they read the names of the boys who had left Methody and been killed in the various wars, and played the bugle, and it was very, very moving, and it definitely made me cry a little bit when I was all of 15 and the height of my sort of callow youth. It still got to me.
Mm. No, I know. We sing the national anthem and Jerusalem and lots of the more kind of the hymns that are about war and peace, and there was lots of emphasis on silence as well, obviously, like
Mm,
as the
yeah,
best way perhaps to remember. And the sermon was about silence. uh, yeah. So
yeah,
that's my Sunday.
yes. Well, I had a very lovely Sunday morning. I sat on the couch reading with my 2 dogs on top of me. Like, it doesn't get much
What are
better
you
than that.
reading, Jenny?
Oh, I'm actually reading a very good book. I don't have a my copy of it is downstairs. It's called Vandalizing Ireland, and it's by a guy called Owen Lenihan. Oh dear, I'm forgetting his last name. Definitely gonna write a Substack about it at some point. It's about sort of the very tragic history of Ireland and how it's currently being plundered by NGOs and a very, very corrupt establishment. Um, so yeah, it's excellent. I hadn't spent any time I hadn't reread or familiarized myself with the old history of Ireland, like from the 1600s, and I'd forgotten how truly dreadful it is, the history of this island. Um, so yeah, that was interesting.
Mm.
Um, and what's going on now with the migrants is so insane. It's almost like you don't believe it when you're reading it. You can't even fully I can't imagine how the establishment is so tone deaf. I mean, either option that it's 100% malignancy, like either extreme, right? That it is some sort of nefarious plot, or it's sheer incompetence. Like either extreme is it's just I can't believe my imagination doesn't stretch that far as to how people could be so like committing such grave errors slash acts of harm.
Yeah, I mean the divide now, I think, between like the working people and elites is so extreme that it's, I mean, I don't know about civil war, but there's this idea of stasis, right? This word stasis means civil war, but it's like when a when somewhere like a city or a country is like in antagonism with itself. And I think that is the situation. Like the people who are in charge of governing us are simply not doing their job. Even from a Hobbesian point of view, the basic
Mhm.
duty would be to protect your own citizens, right? Like that's the
Right,
social contract. It's like,
right.
we give up our right to self-defense because we trust that you will protect us. And everything that motivates the elites, and I agree, one oscillates constantly between the, are they stupid, are they evil, are they stupid, are they evil, is there a form of evil specific to stupidity, is there a form of stupidity specific to evil?
Yes,
um
and I think the
it's
answer is yes to both.
No, indeed, I've written a long essay on stupidity recently. So I've been thinking about this question, and there's also a form of stupidity which is kind of willful, like where you're unwilling to bend on a particular issue. So you end up just repeating the same things as if you are dumb, like as
Yeah,
if and so you get intelligent people saying things that know they can't possibly believe, right? But they
right.
do it anyway, right? And Solzhenitsyn famously makes this kind of claim. um yeah, so I'm quite interested in this stupidity, and I think when you have people coming up with all kinds of theories or ideas about why something is happening, this is also in and of itself not a good sign, because it means that trust is collapsed to such a degree. I mean, trust in all institutions.
Mhm.
Yet more BBC scandals this week. I mean, people have known for a long time that the BBC is just churning out lies and propaganda, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's also incredibly boring, apart from
yeah,
anything else. So we're stuck in, and yeah, and then nobody trusts the institutions. Like
right.
everybody just feels kind of bereft, abandoned, and even punished. And then meanwhile,
Yeah,
the three remaining taxpayers in Britain are like
right.
being fleeced, to pay for unsustainable things. It's not good. I mean, my feeling is that probably we will have some kind of economic collapse rather than civil war in the sense we might immediately imagine. But
Mhm.
clearly there are sort of skirmishes and so on happening all the time, well as kind of incompetency at scale, like releasing prisoners and losing
Yeah,
people, this kind of thing. So yeah, like
yeah.
basic people are not doing their jobs. Do you remember this phrase, like you had one job, which
Yes.
is like a kind of meme? It's like every institution is not only not doing its one job, it's also trying to do like other things,
Right.
right, that aren't its job. Like everywhere it's sort
Well,
of trying to
it's like the entire civil service, political elected officials, almost every single one of them, probably not every single one, but almost every single one, and the media, BBC, the entire establishment class is basically now memeable Sydney Sweeney talking to the GQ reporter moment where the GQ reporter is like, and the Sydney Sweeney is just looking at her like, "Fuck off." That is the face that I'm going to imagine whenever I think about all of these decrepit institutions that can't do the thing they're tasked to do, at all, and yet are seemingly sort of like maniacally like an ant with a virus that has taken over its brain, sort of furrowing into whatever terrible mistake they are all collectively making. Like this is the egregore, right? That everyone's just committed to keeping going forward with the terrible idea that everyone hates, and yet they have to keep going. And it's like it is like that. Have you seen the image of the ant that gets some sort of fungus and the fungus pilots the ant to do whatever it wants, and it just keeps going until the until like it's like a husk of itself. Um, that's what it is, and we're all bystanders, sort of aghast, just
yeah,
aghast.
it's all very late stage Soviet Union, It's like they keep
It
trying
is,
to do the same thing and
but
nothing is working.
this is like the thing about the Soviet Union, at least. At least the insane sort of purgy communist regimes had a clearly defined enemy. So, like, I suppose there's always been, because we were saying that, like, the state isn't even doing the Hobbesian job of just protection, the basic sort of power that the state is supposed to have. It's not even doing that. It's like, it's not just not doing that. What it's doing instead is it's offering us up as sort of sacrificial lambs not because we are their enemy. I don't necessarily I mean, look, I think they obviously have contempt for regular people, and they don't
Mm.
have no empathy or no interest in regular people, but I don't think it's the same as, like, the sort of that paranoid Stalin-esque purge of, like, I have to kill all the doctors because a doctor looked at me funny. It's not that deliberate, it's not that targeted, it's more hapless, and in that way, it makes me more it's almost more frustrating. It's like it's that woman's face again, that sort of like, apologetic, but like, "But I have to let you all be stabbed by insane people from third world countries."
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but there obviously people are being randomly punished and put in prison still for,
Yes.
you know, social media posts or whatever, and I mean, there was an interesting case this week, which is, a good sign, but a good sign in a very bleak situation, which is to do with criticism of, Islam. So at least in an employment tribunal, somebody who'd lost their job, for criticizing Islam, on social media, like, thoroughly, rigorously, whatever, but even if you'd said something, uh superficial, it shouldn't matter, right? So that
Right,
the court ruled that he's allowed to criticize Islam, right? This is in the context of basically lots of people in Labour for cynical vote reasons trying to push an
right.
Islamophobia definition, which I don't think they're going to get through. I sincerely hope not. But at the same time, we've also like Joey Barton, who was actually once my student, interestingly.
How did that happen?
So Joey Barton, for those of you who don't know, is quite a controversial footballer, but I think he was pretty good at point. I think he was playing for Queen's Park Rangers at that time. Anyway, he's been around a long time. He's an opinionated man. He's got an interest in intellectual things for some reason, and somebody suggested he do a philosophy degree, so he came and studied when I was teaching.
Wow.
And he was actually pretty good. He got a first for his essay in my
Wow.
philosophy class. Anyway, there's probably GDPR stuff I shouldn't say about
Oh,
this, but anyway, I think he did publicly say that he was studying philosophy,
right.
in any case. But yeah, he came with a friend who I think was sort of his minder in some ways, and his minder ended up doing the philosophy course as well,
Oh,
which
fun.
was really sweet. Anyway, but like, sorry, the point I'm trying to make about Joey Barton, I mean, he's been found guilty of uh sort of some kind of hate speech legislation, but not as a civil matter, as a criminal matter.
Oh.
Which is not a good sign because we already have obviously laws against defamation as a civil case, civil
Mhm.
matter. If you say something that's obviously untrue and damaging to somebody's reputation, but also if somebody directly threatens someone, we have laws against violent threats, right? But
Right.
we're entering into the situation which is also happening in Germany, among other places, but where insulting someone is starting to be perceived as,
Yeah. A crime?
as a crime. So that's not good. And obviously in Britain we have a long tradition of free speech, not quite the same as in America, but we pride ourselves as a nation on being able to criticize things and express our opinion about religion and of course people attack Christianity and have been attacking Christianity for a long time and nobody says, oh well that's you can't do that. Like Christians are fair
Right.
game. Um yeah. So I don't know, it's all very uneven. It's quite rocky out there, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel, well, especially bleak about Ireland. I think it's exponentially worse even than England and Scotland and Wales, which is hard to believe.
How so? How so? Scale of things
Well,
or
yeah, basically, I mean, well, first of all, I'd like to say hi to everyone who's joined because I forget that this is alive, and actually, a couple people have said hi, so I'd like to say hi back. Liverpool Mary, I saw you there. Hello, I hope you're well. Hope you're having a good Sunday. And Scott as well. I think he sent his regards. Um, yeah, no, but about Ireland, it has no political valve. There is no political release valve at all. It's
what
utterly
does that
non-existent.
what does that mean? You mean in public
So,
life or cultural life or
yes,
yeah.
there's no Reform Party, there's no Nigel Farage, there's no Tommy
What
Robinson.
about Conor McGregor or people like that? You have these heroes, folk
Conor
heroes?
McGregor is probably the closest, but that's not great because he is an out of control sort of addict. I don't I mean, I don't there's obviously I do have respect for this sort of self-made man aspect of him and the skill and the determination it takes to do what he did in life and the boxing and all that. Having said that, the case that he was involved in involving rape of a woman, which he was found civilly liable for, was even though the Irish state and media have every reason to, kind of portray him as a vicious bastard, he did come out sounding just like that, actually. I don't think there was any I don't know about the criminal matter because if he wasn't the police declined to pursue it, or maybe the prosecution declined to pursue it. But his behavior is really abhorrent and very much like someone in the throes of a extreme sort of cocaine and alcohol addiction. That's what it seems like, and someone who's not in control of their behavior in any way. So, you're just if that's the best Ireland can come up with, as much as I do appreciate kind of like loudmouth, bull in the china shop, Overton window openers, like he ain't it. Like he ain't it. And even people who are on the right in Ireland say he's widely hated. They don't like success stories in Ireland. Don't forget, they don't like that. Begrudgery is the national sin. So, so there's that, and there's no release valve that people can coalesce around, because you know better than me, like the sort of the story arc is like, oh wait, this seems a bit mad, this doesn't seem right, and then you're like, you're far right, you're far right, you're far right, you're a Nazi, you're an extremist, da, da, da. And then that works for a while, and then it starts to fall away, and now Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson are both somewhat less toxic. I mean, obviously not completely non-toxic, especially in the chattering class, but amongst regular people, they're less afraid to say, "No, I agree with him." Um, there is no figure like that in Ireland, and there is an actual real far right. There is an actual Nazi stomping around the place, believe it or not. And he is an absolutely laughable figure, except for the fact that he's an open and avowed Nazi. He is obsessed with Jews. He attacked a Jewish Canadian reporter, not physically, but verbally at a nationalist rally. So there is no like when I see the version, like the reform version of nationalism or the MAGA version of nationalism, I am very um supportive of it because it is quite multi-ethnic. It is very kind of open-minded, sort of fair play sort of, movement, and it is diverse, both ideologically and racially, obviously problems, obviously, but, as a whole, the MAGA and reform, I think, are benign forces, right? And there's just that does not exist in Ireland. It does not exist in Ireland. I went to a rally a few months ago just to sort of see what the vibe was, and, it was a lot of working class women, older women with their grandchildren. I've never been to a protest where there were working class people at. That was the only one I've ever been to. So that was somewhat heartening, but there's also then the undercurrent of Irish republicanism, which it seems, according to what I was being told that day, is still committed to not just a united Ireland, but literally getting rid of Protestants. I mean, this is insane. Like, I came away from that movement, that day, that rally, like, utterly black-pilled about Ireland, like, completely black-pilled. Because I'm like, if you're still worried about like, you're gonna make Protestants leave the north of Ireland? Like, I don't think so. Like, that's why are you have a working class movement in the north of Ireland that is experiencing the same pains as you are down here vis-a-vis these migrants being bussed into their areas. um, you're not gonna make common cause, like, you're not gonna do any working class solidarity. What you're gonna do is you're gonna, keep them at arm's length and monster everyone who works with them, so that what? You can get a united Ireland and then kick them out of the country? How is that gonna fix the migrant issue? Anyway.
Sure. I mean, I think these atavistic things, they never go away. I mean, the delusion I think was the idea that we were beyond religious wars. I think humanity is like always in some religious war actually, and it's only temporarily that we think we're not. and that actually the things that people fundamentally care about, well, this is one of the discussions about liberalism that people are currently having at this sort of, as people recognize perhaps the end of a certain kind of liberalism, that the post World War II order is in trouble, we
Yeah.
might say. And so it's like, what will reemerge? John Gray wrote this piece recently for the New Statesman in which he suggested that there isn't going to be a kind of ethno-nationalist England. That actually globalization and liberalism is sort of too far gone. That we have pluralism at best, and actually what we need is a strong Hobbesian state to kind of tidy the edges and keep people together. And this is quite a surprising position in some ways.
Yeah.
The calling for a strong state to sort of keep things peaceful. I mean, I don't think we're going to get that for the reasons we've discussed: incompetency, malice. Clearly, people have got other aims and ambitions that are at odds with the majority of the working people. There was an interesting article in Damage this week, which is a left-wing magazine, sort of confronting the migrant crisis and actually saying, look, as probably we should have seen more of. Look, this is dividing the working class, right? There is no internationale when basically you've got employers undercutting the wages of working people, which was always a left-wing position. Like, you defend the rights of workers where you are. Clearly, everyone is being exploited in this situation. If you're undercutting wage workers, also in the context of kind of technological development and offshoring and moving everything out. So we're heading into a situation in which we've both got too many workers, some of whom are being paid much less than others, many of whom are unemployed, many industries that are no longer functioning, the sort of decimation of the working class. I mean, I think I've been feeling a lot like just the abject exploitation and destruction of the British working class, which has
Hmm.
arguably been going on for centuries, but just
Yeah.
take different iterations. The way in which the working class is like constantly sacrificed at every possible moment in
Yeah.
this at this time, really through the ideology of the elite class, which all of whom are sort of backing each other up and like getting high on their own supply, bearing no relation to reality. The fact that the girls in Rotherham and all the other towns and cities were sacrificed on the altar of multiculturalism and community relations and all of those things. And then the complicity of councils, the cynical, grubby vote mongering of Labour. It's you just think they hate us. They hate us.
Yes, they do. They
And
definitely do.
it's like somebody once said, people will vote for someone they don't like, but they won't vote for people who hate you.
Yeah.
It's people will vote for Trump. They won't vote for Hillary Clinton when she started talking about deplorables, and you just can't do it. Why would you vote for someone who hates you? I
Yeah.
mean, who obviously and actively works against your interests. And like, what do people want? They love their family, they love where they live, they want meaningful work, they enjoy their hobbies. Like, this is like very simple. Most people
Yeah.
like simple life, and to be left alone to the
To
extent
be left
that's
alone.
possible. And to keep like most of the money they earn. And I think the global project, the interesting thing about this Damage article was that it was admitting that the left has basically been in cahoots with the globalization project,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
because it's kind of perhaps mistakenly imposed the Marxist idea of internationalism on the capitalist idea of
Hmm.
globalization, right? With the sort of liberal presupposition of universality. Oh, aren't we all basically the same? And of course, this is such a tragedy for everybody, because it's like, look, there are good people everywhere, right? In an ideal world, we would want everybody to live somewhere that was safe, where they could flourish, where they could be with their family
Yeah.
and with their heritage and culture. And it surely cannot be beyond the collective ken, wit, and wisdom of humanity in 2025 to build a world or to reconstruct a world in which everybody can do that and people are not compelled economically or
Yeah.
otherwise or what to move as in at the scale that they're doing, because it's clearly unsustainable for everyone. You know what I mean? And this damage article was basically admitting that this accusation of racism has been thrown around, the idea that anyone who even wants to have some sort of border control or any position that isn't open borders has been attacked as, far right.
Racist. Yeah,
But this is a situation that ultimately diminishes everybody, you know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so someone in the comments said, asked, I should say, what entity is controlling Keir Starmer, and that you were mentioning John Gray. He must have been. It must have been. To promote that article you mentioned in the New Statesman. He said something interesting about Starmer, which was that I'm going to mangle it. He said basically the only thing he believes in is the law. Except I think he said it much better. And it's interesting to me because the so that I mean, maybe that's the entity that controls Starmer.
It's a malign spreadsheet god to whom
Yes, exactly. Yes.
they've been
That's
dancing.
right. It is a malign spreadsheet god. But the thing is, like, if you had said to me 10 years ago, "Yes, my entire philosophy is based on the law," I would have been like, "That's great. That sounds wonderful. That sounds so sensible, doesn't it?" It just sounds just so sensible. And now I'm just like, "Oh, right. That is very that's perceptive in that, but also I understand now why that's such a terrible thing is because, like, if you can only focus on that, if the law is your only guide and your only moral compass, that's terrible. There has to be a higher power. There has to be a higher power.
Order for what? I mean, okay, great, rule of law, habeas corpus, a neutral application of things that should apply to all of us and for which we would expect equal punishment. Um, but it's in the name of something bigger, right?
Yes.
Whether it's a well-run society or a world in which people can carry out their lives and business safely and securely. It's not an end in itself, right? And this is again one of the big critiques of liberalism from the post-liberal position is the obsession with legalism. Like everything
Yes.
becomes a matter of legislation, and that bureaucratic machine, the legal machine, takes over everything. I mean, obviously, under Blair, Labour brought in a new law for pretty much every day they were in office, right?
Right.
Including everyday encounters, right? Think about the ASBOs, as they were called then, the idea that we need laws around noise control and so on. Everyone seems to have forgotten about these now. We just abandoned those. People can do whatever they want, but in a really bad way. But it was the idea that the law could seep into every aspect of life, and indeed, people needed to be controlled. They needed to be
Yes.
uh, told how to behave and be punished if they did not. And this is a recognition, but also an expedition of the total destruction of trust. The idea that people can manage themselves. When the police were formed in the UK, this is partly in response to Peterloo because the militia, the military had killed protesters at Peterloo, and they thought we need another force. Um, but the idea was fundamentally, originally, that this would, like, as Peel said, the public are the police and the police are the public, right? That it was the same people, like it was the
Right.
people managing themselves in a certain way. And I think we do not see that anymore. The elites, whatever you want to call them, the government, the repressive state apparatus, to use the Altusarian term, that they are so far removed in practice, not even in person. I mean, there are many police officers who are abjectly tired of what they're being asked to do. The
Yeah.
disconnect is extreme.
It is. Do you think there are police officers that are seeing it and are horrified by it?
Yeah, I know there are.
Yeah, you do. Okay, well, that's somewhat reassuring. That's somewhat reassuring. A couple of years ago, I read that hideous strength, the C.S. Lewis
Mm.
um, jumbo novel. It's like a doorstopper. It is. I that book that book completely blew my mind. Like, I didn't even, like, I wouldn't say, like, I enjoyed it in the sense of, like, "Oh, wow," it was very odd, and I couldn't like, these sort of long passages about sort of, like, aliens or I was like, half the time I was slightly lost, but the storyline as to what is going on in the countryside and how it's been taken over by this essentially this progressive alien monster in the shape specifically of the horrible, scary lesbian policewoman. I don't know if she's an actual but she kept very mannish and just the most sinister character I've ever come across. And how it cut it's sort of like moving towards the traditions and the beautiful forests and the pastures of the countryside to devour and destroy it and set it all on fire, and then replace it with sort of like fluorescent lighting, gray linoleum floored rooms and control. And that's I mean, what else is that except a prophecy? And that really reminds Ireland in particular, because also Ireland, I mean, not more so than England, but, just certainly just as much, had such a ancient kind of Celtic mythological and religious and magic and spiritual culture.
Mm.
Those things were alive, fairies and, leprechauns and ghosts and, creatures, like, they were very, very real and very alive to everyone on this island up until about 5 minutes ago, and made my I mean, that literally, like, my own father had stories, pertaining to beings that he had seen on his travels that couldn't be explained, and that's just being destroyed by this, like, almost like this sort of juggernaut, that spacecraft that's flying around the outer reaches of our solar system at the minute. Like, this juggernaut is sort of approaching where it's going to pave it all over in concrete and linoleum, you know, cut out the sun, and everyone is sort of locked down, um, and being sort of psychically devoured. Like, that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like to me. It's not
Yeah,
and I'm not being metaphorical.
yeah, I think it's very revealing that a lot of people are going back to C.S. Lewis and Tolkien as perennial thinkers of these islands, and also in their both in their pagan and their Christian heritage, right? And I think I see a lot more of that, and this will annoy the avant-garde leftist modernist, right?
Good.
Um, reactionary literature. How could you talk about hobbits and shires and you know so
Love
on? But
it.
I think these are really apt metaphors. I mean, I look at, from my window, I can see the city, and these buildings are Mordor.
That is Mordor. You can see Mordor from your house. You literally can.
Like
And also,
yeah,
your neighborhood is very I find it unsettling. Like, the last time because this is one of the things I was gonna say about the crime when I was saying we were gonna talk about crime. When I was waiting for an Uber, the last time I saw you, I was like, I need to sort of step away from this person who's approaching because he was pacing.
yeah. You're
And I was very happy that
shaming me, Jenny. You're like
so
telling everyone on this stream that I live in a really bad area, which is true.
The life of an artist.
I'm an absolute idiot. I mean, I don't know. Some of the decisions I've made in my life are spectacularly feckless, I have to say, but that's
Oh,
okay.
same. Same,
Great.
girl, same.
Uh, everything is an experience. But
Uh, oh, but it's not I mean, the Shire and the Hobbits are 100 I mean, that is the most apt description. Well, I think actually the most apt because it's not as fanciful is David Goodhart's "Anywhere People and Somewhere People." That is because it's also very sort of they're neutral terms, which is helpful, sometimes. But I mean, it was Bannon that sort of reintroduced me to this concept. He's always talking about how the MAGA are the hobbits. And I'm like, oh, I mean, literally look at me. I am an actual hobbit. Like, look at me. I look like a hobbit. Okay. Like, I am very much a hobbit. Um,
obviously, look, I'll show you.
yeah, you literally are an elf. I think we've had this discussion already. You look like such an elf. So yeah, I mean, I love cheese. I love cheese and I love having pints.
Well, I love refined things like Plague
You
My
do.
Heart.
Writing poetry.
Like communing with the butterflies. Um,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I must return to the Shire at some point, but I can't for now. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I think Britain is clearly an island, they are in a very bad place, but I think it's not irreparable. I just read a piece from an American magazine, Frontier, which was trying to address this comment. A lot of Americans have been posting like England has fallen, you
Yes.
know, kind of very, very black pill, whatever you want to say. Like, oh, we're not going to go there anymore, and like it's all terrible. And you're like, well, actually, no, because like, what are we fighting for, right? Like, what is it that we want to defend about England and
Right.
Scotland and Wales and Ireland? Well, it's all of the heritage is still here, right? All of the stories are still here, the myths, the poetry, the everything. It's still there. It's just
Yeah.
like buried under this like dark cloud of really bad decisions and
Yeah.
malign people making bad decisions, but none of it is irreversible. And I do see a way out of this. Maybe we will have to go through economic collapse. Maybe there will be, more violence. But I do think that there must be a kind of gentle way of doing this. Maybe there isn't, and maybe this is just a womanly thing to say. And maybe what we're going to get is uh, a father figure. We're going to get some guy who's saying, right, we need to take charge, and it's not going to be pretty, and maybe that will happen. There's also been this discussion going on. I'm sure you've followed. It's waving to my neighbor. Um, it's not all bad around here. Uh,
Sorry. I didn't mean to dig you like that.
the, I know about the feminization of work and that
Yeah.
whole discussion around, oh, is it that? But I really want to say on this point that question is much older and much more economic and technical and historical, because the Industrial Revolution is really the point at which the sexual differentiation at the level of work is dissolved or starts to begin to be
Mhm.
dissolved. Right, there are no separate spheres for work. Ivan Illich makes this point on his book on gender from the 80s. But it's like one of these ironies of history where men have created a world in which women can now flourish, right? Because of the type of work that is involved in service and knowledge economies. I'm generalizing, right? Of course, men still do the most dangerous jobs and so on. But do you know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it's we're at this point, right, in this kind of economic and technological moment, also
Mhm.
facing this question of automation, also facing this question of UBI. I don't think anyone is going to impose these things well. They are not,
Right.
if they do, right? Like, I think that nothing is going to be done in a pretty way. You also get the backlash with people like Mamdani, who's like this kind of theater kid. I know that you know a lot more about America. You were living in New York, I think, as a
Mhm.
journalist, right, for quite some time. So I'm kind of curious to know what you think about that recent mayoral thing.
Oh, it's
How are
incredible.
yeah,
It's incredible. I mean, it's terrible, but it's incredible. Like, it's significant. Um, I agree with you. I don't think the UK has fallen at all, and I do see those posts, and every time I go to London, I'm like, "Oh my god, this city is a marvel." I mean, it's not perfect, and yeah, it's not as safe, as it used to be, but, compared to the edges of the empire where I am, it's a lot more, um, vibrant. But yeah, no, the thing yeah, the women the feminization thing, I finally read Helen Andrews's piece, which we talked about a few weeks ago, and yeah, it was great. It has actually very helpful stats in there just of how much the workforce has become female and, like, the actual hard numbers, which are useful. But, this is why I think the culture like, people who like to poo-poo the culture wars and say they don't matter and they're just a silly diversion, I think that's a misreading because culture moves everything. Culture shapes all of our lives and our decisions. And, the feminization of the workplace, and I pretty much agree with her contention that that's what caused woke. I think that's true. Um, and I think that's what basically got Mamdani elected. I mean, I called it the hipster revolution, and I do actually think that's true. I don't I haven't been, um I've written about him a few times, and I don't focus on the Islam part because I don't know I don't quite have a read on him. Like, I don't th he just doesn't seem to me like an actual like a stalking horse for Islamism, which I think he's pandering to it. I think he is supportive of it.
yeah,
None of those things are good. But is he, the Ayatollah? No. I don't think he is. If anything, he's the left-wing student who ends up getting thrown in the dungeon and hanged by the Ayatollah, which is
Yeah,
what happened
what part of
in
his
the
decades
yeah,
takeover of
yeah,
politics. And
yeah,
then his background in film, and his mother is a very famous filmmaker.
yes,
His
yes,
performance, everything is like a reel. He's like
yes,
made for the TikTok reel. Like
yes,
now we have people who are basically that, like that's
yes.
who they are.
It's
And
incredible. Yeah, I mean, hipsters have never had political representation before. He's the first, to my knowledge.
it's interesting. I was thinking about the hipster recently, and I was reading quite a sympathetic take on the kind of, let's say, 2000 era hipster, and there was a lot of discussion of N+1 at the time,
Mhm.
what was the hipster or whatever it was called, who was the hipster. And in retrospect, it's like you can see the hipster in the sense of the kind of the urbanite who's interested in music and subcultures and vintage furniture and all of those sorts of things, like as almost like the last gasp of an attempt at having a subculture, because I think we're post subcultures now, and things like music that were so important to us in the
Yeah.
90s, they were like, music was my whole life. I was completely obsessed with music. I spent my entire time like collecting records, listening to things, like reading music magazines, and you would make decisions about people on the basis of their music taste.
Yes.
And I think this is like, that was really subcultural. Still, just about, like whether you were a raver or you were into grunge or whatever, if you were still a goth, and there were all these alliances, and
That's
I used
right.
to DJ when I was at university, and I would DJ for the Rock Society and the Indie Society, and that was like
Oh, wow.
because
I
it's
didn't know
like,
you were a DJ, Nina.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like CD DJ. This is embarrassing. I used to DJ at like 8 p.m. because everyone hated my music. On at this club called the Coliseum in Coventry, on the outskirts of Coventry.
Wow.
Uh,
That's
and
funny.
the point is, like, the hipster as this figure who is like somebody who goes to the city for an interesting life, who seeks to surround themselves with
Yes.
people like them, but is also has an ironic distance to them as well, right? Like, is a little bit, and it's actually a confident culture that can do that to itself. Like, I think in the 80s and 90s, especially, like, Britain was able to laugh at itself more,
Mhm.
and it's some great comedy, like unbelievable comedy from that era, partly because it had a sense of its own identity or whatever. I hate this word, but a sense of its own itself, such that it could even mock itself. You know what I mean? Like, it's only the confident person that can take a joke about themselves,
Right.
or themselves a joke,
Right.
in a playful way. And now we're so far past that. They're like this fracturing, like pluralism in the true sense is like
Yeah.
non-overlapping worlds and completely disparate worldviews, in
Yeah.
which things like subcultures around music no longer really make sense. I mean, the internet also did a number on music as well, but
That's true, yeah. Yeah, and I think someone made this point a few years ago, and I've repeated it since, and I actually don't remember who to attribute it to in the first place, but the trans identities and the sort of the furries and those weird internet subcultures. Now we have the Gooners, I guess. Well, um, those subcultures have replaced the banned subcultures, and also
yeah,
just straight up politics, right? So, like, your political views have become your entire personality, as the young people say nowadays,
it was so
and
much better. People were fighting over bands.
it was so much better because it was low stakes. Do you know what I mean?
It was really high stakes, Jenny.
I mean, you thought it was, but it was, like, fundamentally, it was like it was such an innocent sort of way to while away the time,
Yeah.
and instead now we have, people getting so angry that they are fully supportive of people's, like, heads getting blown off, because they say words that the other people don't like. Um, this idea that
Right. This is
yeah,
this polarization, and this is what the Civil War stasis means, actually, is where, and the friend enemy distinction as well. It's like you literally cannot see eye to eye with the humanity of the other, even if
right,
they're basically you or your friend, and we saw pre-iterations of this all the way through over Brexit, COVID, lockdowns, any disagreement was taken to dissolve friendship, that it was capable of destroying marriages, destroying, long-term friends. And this happened to pretty much everyone I know,
yeah,
right? Either all at once, or gradually, or people use politics as a way of differentiating themselves and other forms of thick ties or previously thick ties to do with friendship, loyalty, length of time you've known somebody, shared background, whatever, just disappeared, just
Right.
dissolved. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the and to go back to the feminization thing and Mamdani, um, I've been writing about so I'm writing a book on the, awful, the urban white I actually literally have to count it out on my fingers. Sorry, affluent, white, female,
Mm.
urban liberal,
Oh, right. Okay. Oh,
and sometimes it's actually more commonly without the "u," without the urban, but, it's awful either way. And how the preponderance of women in professions, it's so interesting to me, because it's not like I mean, women have always been the moral gatekeepers and to a certain degree, moral enforcers, at least in the private sphere, right? And, that's just a role we've always had to one degree or another. But when I wrote something for Spiked recently about this creature, Jennifer Welch. She's a podcaster in the US. There's no reason you wouldn't know her. And she basically just does these screeds. And look, I love a screed. I love a screed. I love to write the screeds. I love to listen to them. But this is just absolute bile, and there's no redeeming. Say again.
like who is she attacking a lot? What's her?
MAGA. She's
Oh,
attacking MAGA and also Benjamin Netanyahu, right? So my take on this was, okay, there've always been these like scary suburban wine moms who are bullies, and they're sort of like they were head cheerleader, like they were, they're psychotic bullies, and they ruthlessly enforce their power dynamic on those around them. But now, instead of ruthlessly enforcing, the choice of your outfit, or the choice of your friend, or who you want to sit with in the cafeteria, or the floral arrangements for your Thanksgiving table, instead of ruthlessly policing that, and shaming and ostracizing and exerting all of these like extreme negative emotional techniques upon or those around her, she's turning all of that energy, that traditional negative female energy, on Bibi Netanyahu and MAGA. I mean, this doesn't make sense. Like, just go back to the shopping mall and, terrorize the people in your immediate circle. Because the negative aspect of femininity has always been there, but how it has become entirely politicized and captured by politics. And so now having political opinions is more important in these sort of like mid-wit, but very ambitious and very canny women. Um, Political opinions are more important than your, like, fashion accessories or your car or any other former status symbol.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I think on the one hand, women have typically tended to be, as you say, moral arbiters and have tended to be historically more conservative politically.
Yes.
But this idea of like suicidal empathy, as it's described now, maybe that's a misnomer in some ways, but telescopic philanthropy was the Victorian version of this. So
Yep.
this has been a problem where people talk about something that's happening millions of miles away rather than focusing like charity starts at home, right? And obviously the Aldo Morris thing came up with JD Vance. That
Yeah.
that question of like what does it I posted a tweet recently where I tried to say like, the time has come to put your philanthropic telescope away and sort your own life out and, sort yourself out so that you can help other people. And I'm saying that to myself also, by the way. It's
Mhm.
like I'm not
Yeah.
like I just think it's true of everybody because actually you can't help anyone if you haven't helped yourself. If you're dealing with your own crap and making other people's lives difficult and making them look after you, like you're in no position to help other people. And obviously if everybody else thought in this other directed way but in their immediate circle, then like we would have a kind of high trust society in which we would tend to look after ourselves. We wouldn't rely on the state. We wouldn't, you know what I mean, other than
Yeah.
in serious cases, emergencies, like where we might need a hospital, right?
Right.
But yeah, how to put it? I think with the kind of the sort of dominance of Palestine as an issue for particularly for young people, the idea that one can project all of one's both positive and negative feelings somewhere where you have no real encounter, and you're never going to have any real encounter unless
Right.
you go over there. And the vast majority of these people are not volunteering to fight. They're not volunteering to do anything practical. They might give money, and they might say, well, we're doing BDS, we're trying to get institutions to not give money to Israel. Right, fine. That makes sense if you want to do something practical. But a lot of the time it's something else. It's like a kind of quasi-religious uh idea of the good and the evil, and
Mhm.
but it's much easier to do that when it's not proximate to you. Because the
Right.
really difficult thing is like staying in touch with your family, being friends with people when they're being cancelled, sorting yourself out, not being a kind of addict, selfish bastard, and like everybody has the same questions. Like, what should I do with my life? Like, how can I be a better person? And I think for
Yeah.
some people, the answer to the question, like, how can I be a better person, is to latch on to things that they actually can't do anything about, really.
Yes.
That it's
Completely.
easier and purer to do that, and to think of oneself as good, because actually the reality of dealing with the day-to-day mess of people in your proximity and yourself, who is a nightmare,
Yes.
that's harder.
Yeah. No, completely. No, it is. It's the make your own bed, Jordan Peterson, advice. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. I also think they're addictive. Their opinions are addictive in and of themselves. Um, and which I always feel a bit awkward saying that because it's like this is what I do full time is I give my opinions. So I always feel like a little bit of a pot kettle situation, but I have good ones. It's fine. It's fine when I do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
same about abstractions. I spent my whole life dealing with concepts and abstractions, but actually, they're pretty dangerous. They have all kinds of very
it's
negative.
true.
It would probably be better if we didn't get so hooked, as you say, on words and ideas. Spent more time in silent contemplation and
Yes,
empirical reality.
yes. Well, this is the thing. Okay, this is actually a good segue because I think that the greatest thing we've lost, yeah, I think the maybe number one thing we've lost, in liberalism and secularism is, humility, and a sense of we do not know everything and nor should we know everything. It's actually wrong to think we should know everything. That's not our place, and I think that's turned liberalism into a monstrosity.
I think that the pride is like the gateway sin classically, both in pre-Christian and Christian thought. I think it's very hard for people to admit they were wrong. Like people will double down, like it's a sunk cost fallacy. It's like, hey, well, I've pushed this idea for 10 years. If I roll back now, and maybe I've been involved in like getting people to lose their work and reputation by defending this idea in some cases, and punishing people who haven't. Uh, how can I back down now? And I think there has to be an off ramp for those people, if you see what I mean, like a kind of
Yeah,
amnesty, a sort of truth and reconciliation. I can't imagine how it's going to work. I think there have been a very few people who said, "Oh, actually, I was wrong." Like some people have apologized to Graham Linehan, for example.
yeah,
Um, but it's clearly very difficult, and we've got a whole governing class who never admit they were wrong, and there seems to be no mechanism for them to say, actually, no, we got this wrong. Like, and actually, what we're doing now isn't working, and this experiment has failed, or whatever. They There seems to be no way of holding anyone to account, right? And this is not about vengeance. Like, there's a way of doing it that would be about retribution and
yeah,
vengeance, but there's also a way of doing it which is just like how to restore balance when some
yeah,
things
it's just reform. Like, reform is possible, like, you can actually reform things, you don't have to destroy everything, it seems completely impossible, like, I mean, look, to me, MAGA is the reform movement, is in, like, they are Trump for all his flaws, is willing to take on these sort of structural problems that have been burdening American society for my entire lifetime. But look at the pushback like that. I'm like, you guys, you have to understand, like, this is the nice way of doing it. Like, the other way of doing it is far worse. Like, if reform fails, then you have bloody revolution. That's the trajectory. Like, it's one or the other. You either accept the reforms or you get the guillotine. Like, that's what's happened. I mean, that is, to me, what history shows. I mean, then the interesting thing about Mamdani is that he is the answer from the left. He is to a certain degree, like, he is the left wing. I mean, he's not really the left wing version of Trump. There could not be a left wing version of Trump, but he is the center is no longer in existence. It's all MAGA and all DSA, which is the Democratic Socialists of America. There is no more middle ground. Andrew Cuomo, who was like the old guard, um, Democratic royalty. His father was the governor of New York. I remember when he was elected in like 1982. I remember that, and it was such an exciting thing. We all loved Mario Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo, with his, I mean, the chutzpah that man had to even run after everything he did to the state very recently during COVID. And like, so, we've dispatched with the Clintons, we've dispatched with the Bushes, we've dispatched with the Cuomos, we've dispatched with the Kennedys, or the Kennedys self-immolated because Robert, what they did to Robert. And so that they're gone, we're done. So that in a sense, like, I find that to be good. I'm like, good, okay, good. Now the two sides are going to have to battle it out, and you're going to have MAGA versus the Democratic Socialists of America, and the fight has begun, as Trump tweeted or True Socialed, and so it begins. And I know which side I'm going to be on because I'm not a Democratic Socialist of America. I'm completely there's not a single thing on their platform that I could abide by, but I understand them. I lived among them. I was raised by them. Like that. Those I know those people. I know them. Those are my people.
So your
Um,
family's like quite left wing, right? Like I know your father was a kind of very important Irish writer.
my mother was a Trotskyist, and my mother is American. Her whole family, large Catholic family, but they all became like quite left wing. And my dad was more of a classical liberal, like a traditional liberal, empiricist, science. Loved Isaac Newton, that kind of thing. Worshipped at the altar of science. So, yeah, but I mean, I grew up around, like, it's like, this is why I find there's some it's almost like a nostalgia in the Mamdani win because, his wife is a ceramicist and an illustrator, and like everyone has these twee jobs. Like, everyone I know in my life is that, including myself, okay? We all have like, all you have to know, like, the easiest way to figure out, like, where you are in the
Mm.
social kind of the demographic class system, how many modern dancers do you know? How many, ceramicists do you know? How many illustrators do you know? How many, or versus how many builders do you know? How many line cooks how many line cooks do you know, right? So, like, this is it, and, like, I know, like, I look at his wife, and she's obsessed with drawing pictures of herself. I'm like, I know people who do that.
Yes, I have to say she's not very good. I mean,
No, she isn't. No, this is an overproduction of cultural elites, and so there's nothing else for these idiots to do except draw pictures of themselves.
yeah. No, that's interesting. I mean, this is a kind of class of person that I met only university onwards.
Yeah.
I have like where I grew up in the countryside, most people stayed where we grew up and had families
Yeah.
there. And were they wrong? They were not wrong. My brother stayed, left school at 16, became a builder, has his electrician and plumbing certificate, is married and has two children, lives close to my parents. That is a normal life for a lot of people
Right.
still, just about. I mean, my brother, his family struggles with money. My parents are from the golden generation. Like they went from being working class to middle class through grammar school
Yeah.
and free university.
Same. Same with
This
mine.
right? So they're part of the boomer thing. They bought a house for like £9,000 in the 70s, and now it's like they did it up, and now it's like worth loads of money, that kind of thing. And so they became middle class, right? But I didn't meet this kind of cultural, I don't know, what would you call upper middle class, maybe, or until I was like 18, till I went to university. And then after, because obviously if you're in the media, you meet loads of people who've gone to private school, Oxbridge,
Yeah.
and some of them are very nice. Like this is not a,
Yeah.
no negative
Oh, they're
generalization.
great.
Very dominant. I used to have like a real problem with private school people because I often felt that they had been taught a kind of confidence that didn't match their intellectual capacity. And then
Mhm.
I used to feel like really bad about the people I went to school with, some of whom were very intelligent, but they didn't have
Yeah.
that kind of cultural capital, if you like.
Sure.
And so it's kind of chip on my shoulder on behalf of like the people I left behind. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, who are these idiots who are like really confident but don't know
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah. Well, you are a somewhere person, don't you think?
Oof. Well, I'm a traitor though as well. I left
Yeah.
the sh
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I am literally a rootless cosmopolitan. I am 100% an anywhere person. I actually have a aching sadness that I don't think I will ever fully grow out of or mature past, and that, like, I'm really literally not from anywhere.
mm,
I've never spent long enough, and my parents are 2 different nationalities. They also left their original class to ascend into another class. So some of my relatives then are still that very big cultural divide because 'cause they're still working class. I yeah, I'm the absolute definition of a rootless cosmopolitan, and I grew up when I was growing up, I knew lots of fucking abstract painters. You know? Like, my parents took me to loft parties in Soho lofts in, like, the '70s, and in the early '80s, and I would sleep under the piles of coats in the bedroom, you know? Um, I have no, um, place, like, I have no place that I mean, I sort I feel attached to places, but I don't have that sort of home, right?
yeah.
Um, so that's just what it is. So I'm also a class traitor in that regard because I'm full MAGA.
Yeah, I mean, I think I sort of betrayed my background in a certain sense, like, which is by becoming an academic and getting into abstraction and so on, because my family are actually incredibly practical. They don't see the point in like I remember when I wanted to do like a master's and a PhD, and my mum was like, "Haven't you had enough yet?" And then when I started teaching philosophy, my brother was like, "You're paid to make people unhappy." And
Oh my god, that's withering.
I know. But I was like, "That's actually a brilliant description of
It
philosophy."
really is. That really is. That is oh my god, that's like, ooh, that's a real burn. That hurts. It's true. That's why it hurts.
They're like very direct. It's like life is practical and you should be helping people and, building things and doing
Mhm.
things. Like, what are you doing sitting around like your entire life, like speculating and looking at
Yes,
birds?
I
Absolute
know.
loser. Like, you know, what do I have to show for any of it?
Do you ever I do this, actually, paradoxically, it cheers me up, but I love to go into, secondhand bookstores and look at all the books that nobody wants. I think, "Oh, it's wonderful." Like, I find it actually super reassuring just, like, to be reminded of how little any of this really matters. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, your book will be, or one's book, I don't mean your book, one's book will be in a dusty pile in an Oxfam that's getting closed down because, like, the migrant hotel is, like
Yeah. Oh, be
Um,
life is
yeah.
beautiful.
Life is beautiful, and it's also like, it's the impermanence of it, I find,
Mm.
although I'm turning 50 in a month, and I actually today I was like, I've decided I am not going to be I was stressing about it, my son is turning 17. I'm like, "Oh my god, it's going by so fast," and I decided to say, "Nope, I'm gonna try and do that Jedi mind trick where I'm like, 'No, it's gonna be amazing.'" Although, of course, every time I've tried that, it's backfired on me, so but, I just think, well, this is the handy thing of now believing in God, right?
Mm.
This is where it comes in really handy because then you're like
God by Jenny Holland.
I am still a pragmatist. It's like, "Oh, well, this is not up to me."
Yeah.
And that is the most wonderful thought. So I went on a walk today. Another reason why my day was so lovely after my book reading with my dogs, I took them up into the hills, and, it was a beautiful sunny day, and I just thought, yeah, I just kept thinking that, well, none of this is all God. This is not me. And that is a truly delightful thought, I have to say.
Yeah. No, no, I agree, and I think to be grateful every day for waking up and for being alive and for having experiences and trying to be a better person, and failing because, well, we
Yeah,
fail. You can try, and you can be better. I'm definitely a better person than I used to be in general.
yeah.
Still
I
a
would hope so, that I am too. I hope I am. I
Oh,
wonder, do you think when we're 70, because like, when I look back at my 20-year-old self or even my 30-year-old self, and I think, "Oh, yeah, I see the silliness or, whatever the negative parts of yourself are." And I wonder when we're 70, are we gonna look back and like, "Oh, we were so young when we were 50."
Probably. I mean, I was thinking about this callow youth thing, and I think one of the things that it sort of is a kind of indicator of civilizational collapse of one kind, maybe a minor one, but is where adults start paying attention to what children say. It's like, no, 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 your job is to guide them. It's not to like believe every last thing or tolerate every last thing. And
100%.
when I think about the sort of stupidities of things I used to think or, convictions I really firmly held, and I did believe them at the time. And I think and some of this stuff I wrote down because I've been writing now for since I was a teenager, and some of it's in public, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know anything. I didn't think this through." I said all kinds of, absolute rot, and but and what happens to a culture when the children are in charge, right? Where no one wants to take responsibility. And I think this is all really downstream of like the 60s, the sexual revolution and so on. The idea that was, we grew up with, I think we still had some guardrails, I
We
would
did.
say, like a kind of post-Christian ethics that was is still loosely Christian, albeit very frayed at the edges. Most people there was still a normative way of like having a family and so on and so forth, even if people were, challenging that and so on. Um, but it's like, yeah, the liberal. I remember my parents. I love my parents. I have a very good relationship with them. But they would say very, very things of the moment where they were in the 90s and 80s, like, "Oh, we just want you to be happy."
Mhm.
This is a terrible thing to say to anybody, actually. Like, this is very unhelpful.
Yeah,
It's yeah, extraordinarily impossible expectation. Rather than saying, I don't know, we want you to have a good life and we're going to help you, or we want you to be a good person, and here's how we did it, and here's what we've learned. I think the idea that people can simply make up their own moral system and everything will be
right.
fine, like, it's just not true.
Yeah, yeah, I
And it
agree.
be true. And the individualism was already pretty far gone. And I think the idea about sex, I mean, you've written very well about sex and our generation, and you've written a pamphlet about it, and we met at Battle of Ideas when you were talking about this a couple of years ago, I think. But, I was thinking about this, like, when I was a teenager, the idea was that sex was just gonna happen anyway. It was like a
Mhm.
natural thing, it was an expression, you know, oh, sod the age limit stuff, sod any idea of, like, waiting like, the idea that someone would wait until you got married was, like, ridiculous. That was just, like,
Crazy.
old-fashioned repression, or, and it wasn't true because what's actually naturally, instinctively true is that human beings are sexual and,
Mhm.
but actually, like, having sex very young, like many of us did, like, was not a good idea.
No.
It really wasn't a good idea. Like, what was the point of that, really?
Right.
And actually, downstream of the sexual revolution, obviously Louise Perry is fantastic on this, and Mary Harrington as well. But
Mhm.
the the people that benefited from that severing of the idea of sex and consequences were a certain kind of man who did not want to embrace the consequences. And people always forget that the first wave of feminists were actually like anti-abortion, for example, because they
Mhm.
said this will stop men taking responsibility for their action. Like, this is immoral, actually. right? But now we think that feminism has always been pro-abortion and so on. No, 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 it has not at all. And so the cad is really the figure of the 20th century, like the man who wants to live without consequences or quality
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it's women and children who like actually suffer from the decline of at least some guardrails around social and sexual norms, you know.
Yeah. It's funny. 'Cause I'm doing this I'm working on this manuscript, and the first chapter is the feminists, awfuls, and, I did say something like, from what I've heard from women, my mother and women of her generation, the men of their generation, their peers were like, really selfish pricks, a lot of them, and, I think and I said I have something in the draft, like, this is the only time I'm gonna blame men for the behavior of the the affluent white, female liberal, but, I can imagine that very easily. I can put myself in my mother's shoes very easily in that regard, where I mean, imagine, like, we inherited it, so we were had a little bit of guidance on how to handle the loaded weapon, right? But they were just given an Uzi in the form of the birth control pill, and, kids going off to college, and all the sexual revolution. I mean, imagine that, what a shock to the system that must have been,
Mm,
and imagine having the luck to have been born a boy, who was coming of age at the same time the pill was coming along. Like,
but
that's
also rock and roll. I mean, you like I
yes,
don't question so much, but like people were one-shotted by this stuff. I mean, it's so
yes,
powerful. You go
yes.
back
It's
to
so
that music.
powerful.
Imagine that was the first time you've ever heard like rock and roll or like a lot of the music in the 60s. Your mind would just be blown away.
Yes.
Even without
Yes.
you'd be
To an unsettling degree, to a degree that points to the supernatural, and, there's actually so there on Amazon Prime, I was flicking through last night trying to find something to watch, and I came across a documentary about Led Zeppelin, and I love Led Zeppelin, and
mm,
Robert Plant, who's an interesting man, I know very little about him, just in the trailer, he was describing what happened to him when he first heard rock and roll. And he was like, "I was from a very normal family. My father was an accountant," or whatever, like, whatever it was, like, Little England, completely steeped in that material reality, and basically said he was one-shotted. He's like, it was instant, it was all-consuming, and it felt like it had the same effect on me as being hypnotized, and think then what Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin became. Again, I love Led Zeppelin, but, like, think of the darkness that is actually there as well, and I'm like, that is very unsettling to me.
yeah. Well, look, the devil really does have all the best tunes, and they are the best tunes. Like,
Yes.
this is the thing, the seduction of popular music. And, when I think back about grunge and like these songs that we were listening to, like hundreds and hundreds of times, such that they were basically a liturgy, like in a religious
Mhm.
sense, we were like intoning and incantations, like, and some of the stuff, really, the content of these songs was like, it was basically like kill yourself. I mean, it was basically like a form of like mind control to do with population or something. It was like it's actually really shocking if you start to think about popular culture as programming. you know, you're like, what on earth were we listening to? And then you think, how interesting. I do remember like the people we were supposed to hate were the kind of right wing American Christians who were idiots and they wanted to like burn records and you know they wanted to stop people from enjoying this stuff and like, oh my god, how puritanical. And of course, like I'm a free speecher. I think there should be no limits on freedom of artistic expression and so on, right? But it's like, but these things have a real effect. Like images, everything we see, watch, hear, read.
Images, yeah.
They're incredibly powerful. And the liberal sort of fantasy that we're somehow immune or like we're numb or we're above the effects that these things have on us. It's like, no, we're not. We're extremely affected all
Mhm.
the time. And
All the
we are
time.
being programmed, whether you think of it in conspiratorial terms or not. Whether these things are just, the flux and flow of artistic production and
Yeah.
or whether people are sitting there going, "Hey, we need to like stop kids in the 90s from having children. Let's make music that, tells them not to," or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, it turns out they were all right. That's the crazy part. They were all just correct. There's a someone just asked a question in the comments there. Bob the Radical, the guy that hates MAGA. Welcome. Anyway, you just asked the question, "What is gooning?" I have an essay from about 2 weeks ago if you wanna go back and read that. I won't go into it now because it's yeah, oh, exactly. It's quite a topic, and it's a real eye opener. And I just realized we've been on here for more than an hour, which just goes to show how delightful chatting to you is, Nina, because I lost track of time.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Just on the dating thing, I mean,
Yeah,
this is like, this sort of narcissistic masturbatory culture, but it's also like an incredibly tragic symptom of the fact that like we locked young people in their rooms for years on end, and we're like, hey, your entire life is now mediated through these unbelievably powerful images once again that you are basically like powerless to resist, and then why not build your whole identity around this? I mean, my friend Daniel Miller wrote a tweet the other day where he said actually the entire culture is gooning. It's not just like
yeah,
this this thing. It's like the entire culture is basically saying, you know, it is masturbatory, essentially.
yes. It is,
And
very
I
much so.
that point where it's quite a really frightening thought, but like we could now in principle make culture that immediately satiates the desire of anybody watching it, right? Like you could have your own entire virtual world, right, that would totally suit whatever you think your preference is. This destroys boredom, fantasy, imagination, longing, desire. Like the idea of courtly love is so far removed from our culture. Like everything must be immediate. If it feels good, do it, blah, blah, blah. Uh, we are running a terrible risk of destroying our capacity to imagine. I was going to say, don't forget May 68 began in France because the young students, the boys and the girls, wanted to share dormitories. Like May 68
Yes.
was a sexual revolution as well as a political one. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
And it was all about loosening the ties, the old fashioned binds of propriety and modesty.
yeah,
So they are deeply intertwined. Like libido and culture are basically the control and manipulation of libido is culture, basically.
yes, absolutely. Because it is also a channeling of an energy, and you can channel it to destructive into a destructive force or a productive force. Bob the Radical, okay, I stand corrected that you're not a MAGA hater. You just disagree. Fair enough. I'll take that note. But yeah, no, the fact that what was it you were just saying something. I got distracted by that comment. Um,
Oh,
you were
I was
just
saying
saying
that like for the entire well, first of all, the entire culture is like gooning culture. Second of all, that we're
yeah,
entering a phase. Yeah, someone mentioned the Ian Forster, the machine stops, like where
that's right. Yeah,
world in which everybody immediately gets to see
yeah,
and hear and
yeah,
whatever feel whatever they want. Maybe in a totally individuated way. Like there's no
yeah.
collective culture anymore. Like everything is masturbatory and narcissistic
That's
stuff.
right, that's right. That's what I was gonna say, the thing about the Gooning article itself was so horrifying because it's, like, an extreme, but what we've done is we've removed from children all opportunity to learn competence and to learn forbearance
Mm.
and replaced it with, like you were saying before, like this like worshiping of them and their little as little zealots, and we like the it's just a silly thing to do to fawn over children and young people. It's embarrassing for all concerned.
It's
Um,
not for them
it's
because
terrible for them.
children need like a
Yes,
reality support and they need someone to say like this is
yes,
how this works and you can't do that and
yeah.
I want you to do this and why because I said so, right?
Yes, exactly. And I mean, with boys, I mean, I just think it's such a tragedy. Like, this is something where I'm like, this can't have been organic. This must have been a very deliberate strategy to take away all instruction in anything in any physical competence. Take that away from boys, and render them these sort of like milk-fed, helpless, mewling creatures and then deliver them to girls and be like, "Hey, good luck with that." I mean, that this is like the only way that boys can learn how to become men is through physical and mental, but physical and mental challenges actually are very much connected. Like I don't mean like hard math problems. I mean like climbing mountains and
Yes,
you know,
shout great again.
yes, exactly. Yeah, my husband's uncle, so my husband's entire family are all in they all have sort of physical businesses, you know, lorries, quarries, everything's very, like, physical, like, requiring built environment and all that stuff, and his uncle has this great line, he says, "Oh, I know how to cure ADHD," and you're like, "Oh, well, how do you do that?" And he just sort of goes, "Move them bricks." And I'm like,
Oh,
"Actually, no, that's incredibly apt because the body needs to move, and young bodies need to move, and you need to be tired, and you need to be you need to be tested, you need to be taxed, physically taxed, so your mind can be at rest. Like, of course that makes sense. That makes the most sense of anything I've ever heard.
Oh, I mean, I like, my nephew, was looking hard at it, staring down the face of everyone saying, "Oh, he should get an ADHD diagnosis," and then he found football, and suddenly, wow, he's, like, doing an awful lot better in all respects. Like, who could have worked out that actually doing a kind of disciplined thing, and he's very, very good at football, he's constantly practicing himself, he's extremely self-disciplined, who could have worked out that that would actually, like, be
I
the cure?
know.
Uh, you know,
I know.
ugh.
Yes. What's the rest of your day look like?
Well, I actually, like, I have another podcast. I don't know
Amazing.
what
Isn't
it
this isn't
um,
this just so preposterous what we do?
I'm speaking to somebody, I don't know who they are, but they're called Theon Ultima on
Okay.
Substack. Now we're talking about a Louis Buñuel film from the '60s called The Milky Way, which is about Catholic heresy, but done in this surrealist way. It's a very interesting film, actually, and of course Buñuel and there is this kind of also Monty Python, which are not dissimilar, actually. I'm sure they were watching Buñuel, but they have this almost like Reddit tier take on religion. It's like, "Oh, look how silly religion is," "Look at all these, like, ideas that people had that are crazy
Right.
from the point in
Yeah.
modern world,"
I
and so on.
remember that.
But actually, I think there's also, like, a kind of sadness in these films too, it's like actually the critique is also of the modern world. Like,
Yeah.
uh, anyway, so yeah, so that's what I'm doing, and, yeah, how about you?
I'm gonna go do a little bit of work and then, take my son to the bus to go back to school. He has GCSEs tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So,
What, like,
yeah,
exams?
actual exams. So, and I was gonna say something else. I'm starting to lose my mind. What the hell? Um, yeah. Oh, yes, I bought a book from your, I don't know how to call it. I also don't know how to pronounce it. Verdura?
Verdura. So yeah, so Verdura is run by my friend Pierre in East London, and I do a lot of work with him. We put on events that are very exciting, and anyone in London should come and see them. We had one yesterday on the supernatural and the paranormal,
Oh,
which was fantastic. We
was it
had
recorded?
yeah, yeah. So Quentin Esquire. We had various novelists. We had people who were working on the paranormal from academia.
Oh my
We had
god, I would love to watch that.
psychedelics and metaphysics. It was, like, fantastic. It was like, imagine sitting in a room for 4 hours listening to, like, people who've dedicated their lives to, like, incredibly interesting things, um, and just telling you in this, like, kind and wonderful way about it. So yeah, we put on, like, reading events and film screenings and all kinds of things. So and
Yeah.
it's, like, open to everyone. You don't have to, like, go there and feel afraid of saying the wrong thing or whatever. It's not like the art world. Of which we're, like, totally banned, so we had to do our own thing, and it's, like, in Pierre's own house, which is, like, incredibly brave.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, the
Yeah.
book I bought is, like, post-gay or post-homosexuality or the
So this is Inversion is the title. So this
yes.
I read this book, I proofread the book and helped a bit with it. It's like it's an amazing collection. So Pierre is also doing, like, publication through Verdurin. So Verdurin is named after Madame Verdurin, who's a character in Proust who runs a literary salon, who's like a total,
Okay.
and she's really, really jealous of all the people who come to her salon. So it's like Pierre's little joke about being a
Okay.
and so on. And So Pierre has put together this amazing collection, and they're very, very beautiful, well-written essays, very controversial in some ways, of gay men largely, talking about the current state of what it means to be a homosexual man. There's lots of discussion about the terminology and the reality of that culture and so on. Called Inversion, and I think it's out next week.
Yeah.
It's well worth a read. I would say, not even if you're not particularly interested in gay culture or whatever. It's a brilliant book about culture in general and
Yeah.
all of things beside literature and so on. Yeah.
Well, I am very interested in gay culture, actually, so I am very much looking forward to reading this book.
Mm.
And yeah, I got a message yesterday saying it would be sent dispatched
Oh,
soon.
write that. Well, we can discuss it maybe.
Yes,
No,
let's do both. We can do both. There's no end to the I genuinely am fascinated by this particular subculture. And actually, I've just we really should probably get going, but I do love. I mean, I love Camille Paglia anyway, but I love how she writes about homosexual men and their brilliance. It's really very it's just captivating. She really expresses something that I had never really been able to put into words. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that.
yeah, fantastic.
All right. Well, I guess we should wrap it up. Well, let's make this a regular thing. I enjoy doing it very much.
It's very nice to see like people. I can't really see like the names in the comments, but they sort of flash up occasionally on my
Yeah, they
screen.
flash up and they go you can see them as well. I wasn't sure if you could.
They sort of come up a little bit, so I had to
Yeah.
sort of get them up. So anyway, I'm not very good at doing two things at once, but
Yeah,
it's very
me
nice to
neither.
see people who I recognize or names I recognize on the
Yeah.
who are joining. And also, yeah, like the comments, and it's very, very, I don't know, it's very like nice and kind of people to listen to this.
It is, isn't it? I agree. I you know, it says now we have 82 viewers, and I'm, like, astounded by that number. I'm like, "Wow, 82 people are watching this? This is insane." Like, what is this wondrous world we live in?
Which you're on.
It's lovely. So, yes, I very much appreciate everyone who has, joined to watch and all of the comments. Sorry, I only acknowledged a few of them. I, like Nina, am not good at doing 2 things at once. I don't know where, this women are good at multitasking thing comes from because I don't feel like I'm very good at it at all. So let's do it again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Bye,
All right.
Jenny.
Bye, Nina. Bye, everyone.